Hello everyone! How are you all doing today? In this video, we're diving into a thrilling zombie apocalyptic horror movie. The story revolves around a woman who has managed to survive by staying put in one place, adapting to life among the zombies. Despite the dangers surrounding her, she's determined not to leave her sanctuary, no matter what. But why is she so adamant about staying? What hidden dangers might be lurking? And most importantly, can she escape the relentless threat of the zombies? Let's step into the world of this movie to uncover the answers. At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a young woman named Anne, who is living deep in a dense forest. She has covered herself with animal scents to mask her presence. A while ago, an unknown virus devastated half the world, turning humans into bloodthirsty zombies, hunting down the remaining survivors. To stay safe, Anne has made this forest her refuge. She also has a car which she uses for sleeping and storing food and supplies, and is resourceful, but her struggles run deeper. She once had a family, a husband named Jason and a newborn daughter, just a few days or months old. When the virus began to spread, Anne and Jason were forced to leave their home in a desperate attempt to protect their child. Jason led them into the forest, a place he was familiar with thanks to his extensive camping experience. He knew how to survive in the wild and taught in the basics, what to eat, how to find shelter, and ways to stay hidden. Fortunately, their house was only 4 or 5 kilometers from the forest, giving them some advantage in navigating the area. Jason made sure to prepare and for survival, even teaching her how to use a weapon. He wanted her to be ready if anything ever happened to her. The thought of something going wrong weighed heavily on his mind, especially since their supplies were limited. They had fled their home in such a rush that they only carried enough provisions for a few days. One day, tragedy struck. Their daughter's health took a turn for the worse. Jason, desperate to help, went to a nearby house in search of medicine and food. Hours turned into night, but he didn't return. Concerned and afraid, Anne decided to take matters into her own hands. She locked her daughter in their car to keep her safe and ventured out to find Jason. As she made her way through the forest and came across a heartbreaking sight, Jason's lifeless body lying on the ground, clutching medicine and canned food in his hands. Overwhelmed with grief and broke down, crying uncontrollably. Despite the pain, she gathered the items Jason had retrieved and returned to the car to care for her daughter, knowing she now had to face this brutal world alone. Taking her daughter, she sets off in the car to find food and supplies, putting into practice everything she learned from Jason. In the present, we see her relying on those skills. She collects her own urine in a bucket to keep zombies from detecting her scent and covers herself in animal feces for additional camouflage, and even sets traps to catch small animals and forages for berries to eat. But unfortunately, the berries turn out to be poisonous, and she begins to vomit shortly after eating them. Weak and unwell, and collapses and tearfully realizes just how exhausted and alone she is in all of this. Her only source of company is an old radio that plays a French broadcast. Though it's always on, she doesn't understand it since she doesn't speak French, leaving her feeling even more isolated. And also has an old music phone, and whenever she looks at it, memories of her daughter flood her mind. But what happened to her daughter remains a mystery, one that will unfold later. The next day, Anne checks the traps she set, only to find them empty. Disheartened and frustrated, she realizes she has only 2 days' worth of food left. Desperation forces her to take a risk she doesn't want to. She must head to an abandoned house nearby to find supplies. To prepare for the dangerous task, Anne cuts her hand and collects her blood in a glass, knowing its scent will attract the zombies. She smears her body with animal feces to mask her scent and ensures her gun is ready, though she has only 4 bullets left and can't afford to waste them, and approaches the house cautiously, stopping near the fence. She turns on her music phone, smears it with her blood, and hangs it up to lure the zombies to one side. With the creatures distracted, she sneaks into the house through the back door. Inside, and finds a stash of canned food and quickly fills her bag. But as she's leaving, she accidentally knocks over a trash can. The noise alerts the zombies, and they immediately begin chasing her. Panicked, and dashes for the fence, but in her rush to escape, she injures her stomach, causing blood to drip and draw more zombies to her. While fleeing, several cans of food fall from her bag, leaving her with much less than she had gathered. She sprints back to her car, barely ahead of the pursuing zombies, reaching her vehicle, and dumps a bucket of her collected urine over herself to mask her scent once again. She quickly climbs inside the car, slamming the doors shut, and finally takes a breath of relief, safe for now. The next morning, with only 4 cans of food left, Anne's first task is to retrieve the cans she dropped on the road while fleeing. She carefully makes her way back, picks up the fallen cans, and puts them in her bag. As she starts heading back to her car, her eyes fall on an injured man and a young girl. The man, Chris, is unconscious from a head injury, and the girl introduces herself as Olivia first and is wary, suspecting they might be infected or pose a threat. But after closely observing them, she realizes they are not affected by the virus. Despite her fears, and decides to help. She carries Chris back to her camp and tends to his wounds, bandaging his head as he remains unconscious. During this time, Olivia begins to talk, explaining their story. She reveals that Chris is her stepdad, who recently married her mother. But shortly after the marriage, the virus outbreak turned their lives upside down. They had been traveling north from the south, hoping to find safety and a better future there. Unfortunately, that journey was interrupted when the virus began to spread. Anne and Olivia listened to the same French broadcast playing on Anne's old radio. But Olivia, like Anne, doesn't understand the language. Later, Anne offers Olivia a spot in the car to sleep, but Olivia insists on staying in the camp with Chris to keep an eye on him. That night, Chris regains consciousness. Grateful, the first thing he does is thank Anne for saving his life. He compliments her setup in the forest, noting how well prepared she is. But then he adds, for something like this, anyone could take your life. He follows up by asking if her car's gas tank is full, and responds with a firm no. But his questions make her uneasy, and starts to worry that Chris and Olivia might try to harm her and steal her supplies. Sensing her discomfort, Chris assures her, I know it's hard to trust anyone these days, but you helped me when no one else would. I'll always be grateful for that. He then shares his tragic story, revealing that his wife became infected. To protect himself, he tied her to their bed, but her screams and suffering became unbearable. He says softly, I couldn't watch her like that anymore, so I ended her pain. And listens quietly, then responds, everyone has lost someone. The next day, Anne observes Chris and Olivia laughing and playing together, their carefree moments filling the camp. Strangely, this bothers Anne. She can't understand how Chris can seem so happy after all that's happened. For Anne, laughter feels like a distant memory, something she has forgotten how to do. That evening, as she watches them laugh again, it stirs her frustration. This time, she speaks up, telling Chris, please don't laugh like that. Later that night, Chris confronts her. What's your problem with us laughing and talking? Why does it bother you so much? And, tense and emotional, replies, watching you, it feels like you've forgotten everything that's happening outside. There's chaos out there, and here you are, acting like it doesn't exist. Chris listens calmly and then responds, I haven't forgotten anything. I just know when to remember it and when to live. The next day, Olivia gets slightly injured and then steps in to care for her. She tends to Olivia as if she were her own daughter, which brings back memories of her past. Over time, Anne and Chris begin to develop feelings for each other, though neither openly acknowledges it at first. Olivia doesn't understand what's happening and feels conflicted because she herself is somewhat attracted to Chris, even though he's her stepfather. Chris remains completely unaware of Olivia's feelings. One day, Olivia confronts Chris, asking, why are we staying here? Why don't we just leave? Chris responds thoughtfully, leaving so suddenly wouldn't feel right, and has given us food and water. We can't just abandon her like that. I'm going to ask her to come with us. That night, as they sit by the fire, Anne notices Chris quietly setting aside some of the canned food instead of eating it. Curious, she asks, why are you doing that? Chris explains, when we move on, who's going to give us food or water on the empty roads? I'm saving this for the journey. Hearing this, Anne offers him more cans, but Chris declines. You'll need these too, he says firmly. If you came with us, I'd gladly take them. Anne replies, I can't leave this place. This place holds memories of my family, and we don't know what we'll face out there or if there's anything better ahead. Gradually, Anne opens up to both of them, and a small smile starts to return to her face. She finds herself beginning to enjoy life with Chris and Olivia. But one day, as the three of them are swimming together, Olivia becomes upset seeing how close Chris and Anne have become. Later, Olivia tells Chris, Anne looks so much like my mom. Maybe that's why you want to bring her along. Chris gently explains, look, Anne will help take care of you, and together we'll all take care of each other. She's been surviving here alone for so long, she deserves some help and happiness too. Please try to understand, this isn't just about us. She needs help too. Chris's words leave Olivia thoughtful, as she begins to see the situation through a new lens. The bond between the three of them grows stronger, even as unspoken tensions linger beneath the surface. Later, as Olivia and Anne sit together and begins to reminisce about her painful past, her thoughts drift to the day she left her child in the car to search for food. That memory haunts her deeply. On that fateful day while scavenging, Anne encountered a zombie woman. Thinking quickly, she shot the zombie, but its blood splattered onto her clothes. At the time, she didn't think much of it and rushed back to the car with the supplies she had gathered. When she returned, her daughter was crying uncontrollably, and picked her up, holding her close to comfort her. But in the process, the zombie blood on Anne's clothes smeared onto her daughter's mouth. Unbeknownst to Anne, this small exposure was enough to infect her child. The story again returns to the present. Chris and Anne have gone out to gather wood, while Olivia stays back at camp, preparing to finally confess her feelings to Chris. Meanwhile, while gathering wood, Chris and Anne share a moment, and Chris kisses her for the first time. There is a growing love between them, and Chris uses this opportunity to try convincing her to come with him when they leave. He thinks she might finally agree. Later that night, they sleep in the car together, which Olivia notices and finds difficult to accept. Upset and feeling left out, Olivia sneaks out and removes all the canned food from the car trunk and leaves the camp in frustration. The next morning, when Chris suggests to Anne again that she come with him and responds, "I told you, I can't leave this place. My family's memories are here." Chris insists, saying, "I know you have memories here, but this place isn't safe for you. Your family is gone, but you have to keep living. Come with us." However, Anne feels hurt by this, and she walks away, leaving Chris regretting that he pushed too hard. After a while, Chris notices that the car's trunk is open, the food cans are missing, and Olivia is gone. Both he and Anne head into the forest to look for her. Deep in the woods, Olivia encounters a zombie woman. Overcome with fear, she screams, drawing the attention of Chris and Anne. Chris rushes to save her, but as he fights the zombie, it turns on him, attacking viciously. Anne, seeing Chris in danger, grabs her gun to shoot the zombie, only to realize she's forgotten the bullets. Thinking fast, she uses the gun itself as a weapon, bludgeoning the zombie. Chris joins her, finishing off the creature with sheer determination. The story shifts back to the past, where Anne sees her daughter showing clear signs of infection, overcome with guilt, and blames herself for what has happened, feeling that it's all her fault. In a desperate to ease her daughter's pain, she takes a bottle of aspirin, mixes it into her daughter's baby formula, and in a final heartbreaking act, adds a few drops of her own infected blood to ensure her daughter's suffering ends quickly. Tragically, this mixture causes her daughter to die almost immediately. This was Anne's painful way of relieving her child's pain, a heartbreaking decision that will haunt her forever. The scene transitions back to the present, where Chris, along with Olivia, now wants to leave the camp and move on. He asks Anne once again, "Will you come with us or not? I'm leaving either way." Anne, still deeply tied to the memories of her family, responds, "I told you, I can't leave. My family's memories are here." Chris, sensing her pain, tries again. "Why are you punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault? What happened to your family wasn't your fault. You have to move forward with your life." Finally, Anne agrees, realizing she can't keep holding herself back. She shows Chris the fuel she has stored and agrees to join them on the journey. Though she mentions they'll need more food, she suggests they go to a nearby house to gather supplies. Olivia quickly insists on joining them, and they agree. The plan is set. Chris will distract the zombies while Anne and Olivia go inside to gather the food. Once inside, Olivia betrays, and taking advantage of a momentary distraction, Olivia knocks Anne unconscious with the back of the gun. She ties Anne up and screams loudly, intentionally drawing the zombies toward her. Rushing back to Chris, Olivia tells him that Anne didn't make it, that she was killed inside. Both Olivia and Chris quickly flee back to camp with the food Olivia collected. Meanwhile, Anne regains consciousness and uses her survival skills to escape the house and avoid the zombies. She makes her way back to the camp, only to discover that zombies have attacked Olivia and Chris. Turns out that when Olivia fled after betraying Anne, she forgot to cover herself with urine, and her scent attracted the zombies. Anne quickly springs into action, loading her gun and taking down the zombies one by one. as the chaos unfolds and is left with only one bullet. She must make a heartbreaking decision: save Chris or Olivia. After a moment of intense thought, and decides to save Olivia. She fires her last bullet to protect Olivia, leaving Chris behind to be overwhelmed by the zombies, and grabs Olivia, starts the car, and they escape. However, as they drive away and is haunted by memories of Chris and the guilt of leaving him behind, Olivia also realizes the gravity of her mistake and feels remorse for betraying, and overwhelmed by frustration and sorrow, and speeds through the desolate roads, her mind racing. She wonders why every person she loves and cares for seems to be ripped away from her. Why does this always happen to me? Why do the ones I care about always leave me? And with this bittersweet resolution, the movie comes to end. If you enjoyed the story and this explanation, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, stay healthy. Goodbye for now. And finally, thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next video.